About Gemara. Today's Daf is Daf Sam Gimel about Aleph. We're learning beautiful Gemara about people who went after they got married. They went to Koil for a number of years. For some reason or another, went multiples of 12 years. And the last thing we learned was about Kiva, who was a shepherd by Kalba Savua, and how his wife was Moshe Nefesh, so he can sit and learn. So he can learn. We actually didn't learn here in the Durham, if I remember correctly. The Ram brings a Yerushalmi that Kiva's wife sold her hair. And that's how they supported themselves, her hair braids, and so on. Okay, so we are up to the Gemara. Just one thing before we go on. There's a famous, I don't know if I ever told you this, there's a famous tradition called the Or Zerua. He was a Talmud of Yehuda Chassid, and he's a source of a lot of our halachas. And they once asked him why he called the name of the sefer Or Zerua, that pasuk Or Zerua Tzaddik, which we say Friday nights, Elisha of Simcha. So there's an argument. How do you spell Akiba for divorce? Akiba, Ayin Kuf Yud Beis Hey or Ayin Kuf Yud Beis Aleph. So there's a big argument. And one night he had a dream, and in the dream, he was dreaming the whole night the pasuk Or Zerua Tzaddik Elisha of Simcha, and he had no idea why he was dreaming that dream. And then when he woke up, he thought about it and he realized that the pasuk Or Zerua Tzaddik Elisha of Simcha, if you look at the last letter of every word, so Oy is a reish, and the last letter is reish, and then Zerua is an ayin, and Tzaddik is a kuf, Yisra is a yud, Lev is a bay, so that's akiv, and then the last word is simcha, which is a hey, akiva with a hey. However, I think actually we spell with an aleph, but that's why he called the sefer Or Zerua, because he had that dream and told him a psak. Okay, we're up to Gemara a few lines above the Mishnah. Some Gimel Aleph. The Mishnah says, and we found out Akiva's daughter was even more Moshe Nefesh. She allowed her husband to leave Ben Azai. 5 lines above the Mishnah. Rabbi Yosef, Bereya the Rava. Rabbi Yosef was the son of Rava. Shadre Avu LeBeirav. Lekame de Rabbi Yosef. So his father Rava sent his son to go to yeshiva before his own teacher Rabbi Yosef. They made up, he'll go there for 6 years. After he got married, he should go for 6 years. Okay, not 12, but 6, like Rebbe's son, who cut it down to 6 last time. But after 3 years, he missed his family. He came out of Yom Kippur, just like we had yesterday, that there's one person who left, and every Erev Yom Kippur, he would come back home, and because you don't learn anyway, so he decided to come home Erev Yom Kippur. That was Avrahami. He said, let me go see my family. Shama Avua, when Rava heard that his son was leaving Koil after 3 years to come and visit his family, Rava got so angry. Shakal Mana, he took a utensil or a weapon. The Nafig La'ape went out to greet him as if to say, get back to your Koil, don't come home. Amalei, he said to him, there's 2 versions there. He said, either Zainoschid is Kedes, what you remembered your Zaina at home. In other words, he was just trying to take away from him his interest in coming home. Or Zugoschad, you remembered your wife and suddenly you're leaving yeshiva. Or he said to him, that you're Yoni, your dove at home, the one that you love so much, is that and that's why you're leaving Koil to come back home. Stay, we made up 3 years, you should remain there for 3 years. And others say not Yonoschad, but Zugoschad. Basically, they both continued in fighting in this argument. The son said, I want to go see my wife. And the father said, you're only made of 6 years, go back to yeshiva, to Koil. That Erev Yom Kippur, they were so busy fighting, neither of them ate the Suda Mavsekes because they were too busy fighting. So I'm not exactly sure what the Hayrol, the Maisa from this story is. So who was right? Mishnah. So what happened? You have a woman who was rebelling against the husband. In what way? We'll see in the Gemara. Now remember, we learned that a wife has 7 obligations to her husband, and a husband has 3 obligations to his wife, basically. She'era, Ksusa, Vayinasa, plus all the other things we learned in Abraisa, about burying her and ransing her. But mainly 3 things the Torah says. She'era, Ksusa, Vayinasa. Clothes, food, and intimacy. Anyway, so what do? You don't just divorce her. You start deducting from Kesuvos Shiva din b'Shabbos, 7 din in a week until you finally get to 0, and then you give her a get, and she leaves without Kesuvah. The idea is hopefully she'll change her mind. Rabbi Yehuda will try to go to marry a therapist and try to work it out. Rabbi Yehuda says you don't take such amount. You take shiva trapikin, a different kind of a coin, which Gemara later will discuss what exactly trapikin is. Ad mosai hu poiches. So how far? So you continue to lose how long? Ad Kesuvos until the ksuva becomes nil. Rabbi Yossi says, but no, it's only the ksuva itself. As soon as the ksuva is finished, you give her a get, and she leaves out of ksuva. But things that she yashin from her father, let's say Yerusha, all that you don't deduct. As soon as it's just what's written in the ksuva, including the Tanai ksuva, and that's it. However, Yossi agrees. He says you continue even beyond the ksuva. You continue if she brings in a Yerusha, you continue deducting that yet. You continue deducting and so on, and it goes. And according to some, even if you already went beyond zero, you continue. You don't. You hopefully that she'll change her mind. You continue going because maybe one day she'll have Yerusha. You'll be able to get yourself paid. You're feeding and everything else. How am I get reimbursed? Because maybe one day she'll have Yerusha. And you continue to take. The same thing applies the other way around. If the husband rebels against his wife, and there by Sifra every week you have to add 3 dinner, and the hour goes going to ask what's the difference in a husband? He's penalized far less than the wife. She loses 7, and he only adds 3. And the Gemara will explain that the husband, we'll see later, who suffers more. But Yishalmi says very interesting. She loses 7 because she has 7 obligations to her husband, which we learned in the Mishnah before, and he has to add 3. He's penalized 3 because he has 3 obligations. Taisa brings that down. Rabbi Yehuda says shloisha trapikin. Every time it's a dinner, he says it's trapikin. So the Gemara what do you mean she's rebelling? What way is she rebelling? We can learn later in the Gemara in the early ayins about rebelling against Yiddishkeit. That's Yehudis and that's Moshe. But here we're talking about rebelling in their relationship. So what do you mean exactly she's rebelling? Rav Huna says mitash mishamita. Rav Huna says basically rebelling is she refuses to have any intimacy with him, and that's grounds already for this what we learned in our Mishnah. Rabbi Yehuda Chanina says no, the malacha. She's not refusing to do the malachas that they had. The malacha that he has to do, which you said before, the 5 slime, making the wool for the 5 slime. Rav Huna, Taisa explained, the other Shem explained, Rav Huna is consistent with his view that says a woman can say to the husband, I don't want to work for you. So therefore, it's not called a don't feed me, I don't want to work for you. And then simply, Rabbi Yehuda holds like a shlach is that a woman cannot say that, therefore she's rebelling. Another way of learning is that everyone agrees that she can say that. But the argument is, when we say that a woman says, I don't want to work for you, I'm going to take care of myself. What about the other 6 obligations? There were 7 in total. 6 were making the bed and all that and nursing the child. Those obligations still remain, even though she's earning herself, or all 7 obligations are removed. The big machlekes are shining. And maybe that's a machlekes here. According to Rav Huna, everything is removed from her, so therefore she's not called a rebel at all if she says I want to work for myself, and therefore can only be tashmish. And according to Chanina, even though she has a right to say I don't want to work and I don't want to work for you and don't feed me, but the other 6 obligations still has, and therefore she's a rebel for the other 6 obligations. Anyway, Tanan, we learn it says the husband rebels against his wife. Now let's understand. It sounds like it's the same case. That she's refusing him intimacy, so he's doing the same thing, refusing her intimacy, so he gets penalized. It all makes sense. Ella one who says that she is rebelling and not working for him. In what way does he have to work for her? Somebody says yes. He doesn't have to work for her, but he says, I refuse to provide for you. I refuse to provide for you. Says the Gemara. So therefore, he's rebelling against her. He's not taking care of her. If somebody says that, you don't hang around, let her hang around. You actually say to him, if so, divorce her and give her to her straight away. Says the Gemara, don't we also have to give him a little bit of time? Maybe he'll calm down and he'll reconsider and so on before he divorces. We don't want divorce to be a first resort. We want divorce to be a last resort. So during the time that he's considering it or reconsidering it, that time he has to meanwhile we penalize him, adding that time, that 3 dinerim a week to the ksuva. Taisha says a fascinating thing. Rabbi Yoel says we're saying that in other words, he's the same as her. She refuses to work, and then we're saying by him that he refuses to provide. So what's the v'chein? So Rabbi Yoel says from here we see that there's a chiyuv. If a husband cannot afford really to take care of his family, he has a chiyuv to go out there and find a job. He must go out. It's part of the obligation to find a job. And he says that's pshat in the Kesuvos. We say ani falach ezay and all that. Falach means generally means I'll work. I'll literally means I'll bow down or I'll work towards her. It means he must go out there and find a job. And others disagree. Other things agree. There's no fee for the husband to go find a job. If he has money, he has to provide for her. He does. He doesn't. Says the Gemara. Okay, another proof. Makes another question. It says, "But I said, I don't care whether she's engaged and refuses to get married or whether she's married. But and even if she's a nida, even if she's sick, she's waiting to marry brother-in-law. In all these instances, she rebels. She loses 7 a week. Now let's understand. What are we rebelling in some of these cases? So there's some people have this version. The one who said that she's rebelling against work, shapir, it makes sense. It makes sense that even though she's a nida, even though she's a chayla, she's maybe capable of doing some work, and therefore she's rebelling. The one who says that she's rebelling means she refuses to have intimacy. In the case of a nida, she's not allowed to anyway. So what's the where is she rebelling? How is she rebelling? Nida batashmishi. Malach, he said, Tim, we learned yesterday, if she makes a vow while she's nida, I don't want to have any intimacy with you, it's far worse than just the laws of nida. While he's a nida, he knows that afterwards will be all right. If she makes this endless nida, I don't want to have any intimacy with you, then it's not pas b'salei. There's no time period when it's going to end, and therefore he is concerned. And that's why he's considered a rebel. He could have another version. The one who says it's from tashmish. That's why it says chayla, because the chayla is still able to have tashmish, and if you're rebelling against tashmish. But the one who says rebelling against work, chayla bas malachi, how can a chayla do work? She's a chayla, she's sick, she can't do any work, so what means she's a rebel? As one says, you're right. So now we're revising it as follows. Elamit tashmish, if she says, I don't have anything with you, there's no argument. Kuli amle pli, that's definitely considered a rebel. Ki pligi, what are they arguing? They're arguing if she says that I don't want to do any I don't want to meet my obligations. Mar sava mimalacha lo havi meredis. That's not called a meredis because she has that right, as we said before. Mar sava mimalacha nami havi meredis. Someone says imalacha also is considered meredis, either to hold like a shlakish or the other 6 forms of work. Interesting. Taisa says there, very interesting thing. Taisa says, we're saying that according to the one that says malacha in the first version, everything makes sense. If it's we ask a question, if it's tashmish nida shayach tashmish, what is tashmish? She's anyway else in the first version. So now, but if you hold malacha, it makes sense that I need to oppose malacha. So then the question is, if we're talking about work by a nida, what do you mean when we say afilu nida? A nida is no different than any other woman when it comes to work. So why highlight nida? Nida can only make sense if you're introducing it because it affects the relationship, the intimacy. But as far as malachas is no different. So how do you explain afilu nida? And Tosha says an interesting thing that a nida, a woman while she's menstruating, many women have headaches and they don't feel well, and it actually impacts on the level of work that they can do. Or if you hold that malacha doesn't only mean putting together the wool, but it means all 7, and some of those 7 she cannot do because she cannot be moizik, mix the drink and then pass it on. Tells you about further Gufa. Let's analyze the Bryce we just learned. She rebels. Shiva dinim. We deduct 7 dinim per week. Rabbi says Shiva terapikin. Rabbi says 7 of the coin terapikin. Then we have a third opinion, Abba Seinu. That Abba Seinu come along and says you're both saying. In fact, in Lahavdil, it used to be told very recently that if you want a divorce, you have to first be separated for a year, or some places 2 years, and only then can you go ahead and apply for a divorce. And that's basically what they want to talk about over here, that we need to give it some time, force them both in a situation where you have some pause and maybe reconsider before you just jump into it straight away. That's basically what we're saying, the first 2 opinions, Rabbi Yehuda and the Tanna Kama. However, the Rabbi Seinu, they disagree. They say there's no pause. You want to give a divorce, give a divorce. All we give is arba shabbos zu achazu. First of all, you make an announcement. So you make an announcement that this is what's happening, and we don't want her to lose the entire Kesuvos where Rashi learns or others learn, because we want to give them a pause, a very short pause, and that's sufficient time. So what you do is make an announcement that they are separating, and we give them 4 weeks. 4 weeks, zu achazu, 4 Shabbos one after another, and then the Sholchel Bezin, then Bezin sends her a message. How the Yadati should know. According to the way if we take the price literally, then we'll see more later, maybe not so. You should know that even if Kesuvos is 100 mana, you're going to lose. If you're going to continue to maintain this rebellion, you're going to lose everything. So what are you doing? Can reconsider. I don't care whether she's just engaged or refused to get married, or Nesua, or she's married. Even if she's a nida, she's sick, she's young, waiting for a brother-in-law. In all of these instances, we only give 4 weeks, and that's it. Then we give her the warning and make an announcement for 4 weeks, and then we give her the warning, and then she loses, she leaves without a children. According to the Gemara here, this is when he asks the question. We just need to come into Tashmish. She's rebelling and refusing to do Tashmish. What's the point? Cannot compare somebody fasting if he knows he has food at home, or if he doesn't have any food at home. So at least while she need, the husband knows after the need shows to make sure everything's all right. But if she also places a ban, I don't have any intimacy with you, then even while she's in he bothers it. Amar Rabbi Chama says, Ein machrizin aleh el b'tei kli b'tei drashos. Where do you make these announcements? Dafka and Shuls. Amar says, Rabbi, they can now prove it to you. Tani arba Shabbos. And sometimes we say Shabbos means weeks. Here we're going to die. Shabbos means Shabbos. Zu achazu. One after another. It says clearly you only do it once a week. So therefore, if you only do it once a week, so then we're going to say it's Shabbos. And where most people will Shabbos and Shul. Shema Mino, it's in Beis HaKnesset and Beis HaMedrash. Amar Rabbi Chama says, Pamayim, twice. Sholchelam Bezin, twice they said Bezin. Achaz Koydem Achroza, once before they start the announcement, and Ba'achaz Achroza. So according to Rabbi Chama, even though if you take the Brisa literally, it sounds like they only sent her these messages afterwards. According to Rabbi Chama, first they said, before they start this whole proceeding, they send her a message to tell you, don't be silly, reconsider. Then they make the announcement, the public announcement, 4 consecutive weeks. And then the Bezin sends a second time and gives her a last warning. Lodash Rab Nachman bar Rav Chizda. Rab Nachman bar Rav Chizda said, "Halacha kirab seinu, halacha like Rav Seinu." They don't give her, ad infinitum until the Kesuvos runs to nil, but rather 4 weeks, and that's it. Omar Rabba says, "Rabba, hi burcha, this is made up, not correct." Omar Nachman my burcha said, "What do you mean it's made up? It's not correct." And Rab Nachman said, "I'm the one who said it." And I actually said the name of a very great man. No man, who was that? Rabbi Yeshua Rabbi Chanina. I said in the name of Rabbi Yeshua Rabbi Chanina. What are you going around saying that is Bob Mises? The EU commands of Rabbi himself. Who does he hold like? Kihadi eat my Rabbi. Amar Rav Sheshes. Rabbi said in the name of Sheshes. Halacha. The halacha is nim lachin ba. We consult with her, and the way Rashi understood is that you cannot give a get straight away. That in fact that we have to delay the get as long as possible when we do this penalty, and we try to convince her during the entire time that she's still being deducted from the Kesuvos until the Kesuvos turns into nil. Remember, there's a Tanai Kesuvos, so it can take a lot longer, and we have to have a long period of separation, and hopefully she'll reconsider. Now, so according to the Rabbi Yehuda says halacha einim lachaba. Rabbi Yehuda says in the name of the same Rabbi Sheshes that the halacha is that you don't consult her. Now, Taisus argues with Rashi. He holds that the way Rashi learns is that they're arguing, these Amoraim are arguing only regarding whether we pause, whether we have a period of separation or only 4 weeks, like the Rabbanan said. However, Taisus says that's not what they're arguing about at all. What they're arguing about is what Rami Bar Chama said, that even though the Brisa says that the Bezdin sends her these messages according to Rabbanan only after the 4 weeks, whether you also send her before the 4 weeks. And that's what their argument is about. And Rabbi said Allah is like Rabbi Bar Chama, not like the Brisa. You take it literally, and that you send her a warning before you start the whole proceedings, and a warning after you start the whole proceedings. Talking about further. So what exactly the situation of Amired is, and we're talking about here that we delay the get and we diminish the Kesuvos either till it turns into nil or just for 4 weeks. This is the situation. She says, I have no problem living with him, but I'm angry with him. Therefore I want to hurt him, and therefore I don't want to have any intimacy with him. But if she says, Mo'is olai, if she says, I cannot stand his guts, or I find him repugnant, then like kafinullah, we don't go through this exercise at all. And she says, I don't care about the ksuba, I don't need the ksuba, I just want to get out of her, get out of this relationship. Then we, what do you call it? We don't force her to stay on and go through this whole thing. We give her a get straight away without a ksuba. That's how Rashi learns. Tracy has a big problem with that. So according to Rashi, if she says, Moyi Salai, I can't stand him anymore, we would tell him you have to give her a get, and she loses the ksuba. Tracy has a problem with that because the Gemara in the Durham will learn the end of the Durham that if a woman comes along and says, I committed adultery, we don't believe her because we think that she just wants to, she just wants a divorce and she maybe fell in love with somebody else and therefore that she just came up with a story. So it says Tracy, the same logic applies here. Every woman will say, Moy Salai, I can't stand his guts, and then we're going to force him to leave a get. And that's not the the whole idea of a marriage is trying to keep the marriage together as long as possible. Sometimes we even, cajole them to stay, to try to work things out and patch things up rather than just using divorce as a first recourse. And he disagrees with Rashi. Rashi, however, says that Gemara there is talking about where she's saying, she wants maybe a ksuba. But over here, we're talking about, she says, I'm prepared to give her a ksuba. If she's prepared to give her a ksuba, it sounds like she's telling the truth. Because she's giving up a lot. But if she's saying, I don't care, Mois, I just can't stand him anymore, I don't care, I'm prepared to give her a ksuba, then obviously she's telling the truth. That's what Rashi says. Tais says, no, maybe she fell in love with somebody else, and love is worth more than money, and she's prepared to give up all the money in the world so she can be with a new love. So that's the interesting argument between Rashi and Tais. According to Rashi, psychologically, will a woman give up all the money and all her entitlements because she loves somebody else, or she'd give up or not? Anyway, the word continues. Mazutra says, even if she says Moisalai before we go through this whole situation of separation and so on. Habib, there's a story, and the Gemara tells a story actually to support Mazutra, where he forced her to stay, for the year of separation, and during the year of separation, they sort of got together, and look what happened. But Mazutra forced her to stay on and not to get the divorce straight away and just continue losing money every week so that she should reconsider. And then she came back to her husband eventually, and they had a child, Chanina Masuda, had an Almaida, it was a big tzaddik, a big Talmud Chacham. So we see that forcing people to stay married, even though she says she wants to get out, we're not talking about a case of Moy Salah. We're talking about a case where she says, I want him, but I want to cause him pain. If we force them sort of to stay married as long as possible, things can work out. She can calm down. And look, they brought this beautiful neshama into the world. Says the Gemara, that's no proof. Hasam sayata d'shmayahava. That was some miraculous thing that, generally people don't like each other. They shouldn't be living together. In fact, you had a Gemara in the Durham. In fact, it's a beautiful Balatur in the beginning of Kiseitzai. We have lists the Gemara in the Durham, a very long one. It goes through all the things that happen if somebody has relations with his wife and she doesn't want to have a relationship with him and he forces himself upon him. Terrible things, terrible consequences, especially regarding the children. Become epileptic and all that kind of stuff. And here we had a tzaddik. So obviously this is unique. This is like Ma'is and Nisim. This is something different. Sayata d'shmaya. And it's not a good idea to force people who really don't like each other to stay together. Karl said Rabbi Zvid, the daughter-in-law of Rabbi Zvid, Imre, the daughter-in-law of Rabbi Zvid, rebelled, but she, according to Rashi, she actually said, Mo'is alai. She went a step further. She didn't just say, I want to cause him pain. I can't stand his guts. Habit fisa, and she says that you have to give a get, and she loses the ksula. Habit fisa chad, she was holding on to some of the clothes that she brought in, one particular, mantle, something that she brought in with her to the ksula. Yosef, Ameimer, Mazuravashi. So therefore, Amoraim was sitting together, Ameimer, Mazuravashi, and the Yosef of Gamda Gabai. I think it was of Gamda Yasvi Kamda was sitting there and saying, Morda, if she rebelled, Hifsida Beloisa Kayamin. Anything that she brought into the marriage, if it's still existing, even her clothes that she brought in, let's say for a dowry, but if it was assessed and it became part of the ksula, and it is still there, she forfeits them. Amalei Rav Gamda said, Mishum de Rav Zvid Gabra Rabba, because Rav Zvid, the father-in-law, is a great man. Mechnaf, usually you're trying to chanf him, you're trying to flatter him, or trying to ingratiate yourself on him. And that's why you're poskening that to his benefit, that the daughter-in-law loses everything, including the clothes that she brought in. Rav Kahana himself said, "Mi boy, Rabba asked this question. Well, he never resolved it." That's one version of what happened. Ikidam, the others say just the opposite. Yasvi Ukamra, they sat in and said, More the law you see the blood. They said she does not lose her clothes, at least that she brought in, she could take back with her. Amlur Gamdav said, Mishum de Ramzit Gabra Rabu, because Ravid is a great man. And the way Rashi adds, and he's a very humble person who will never object to what we're going to rule. So you went against him and you're supporting this young damsel against the distress. The boy Rav himself asked the question whether she has a right to take back the dowry, the clothes of dowry or not. But he never resolved it. Says the Gemara, now that the Rabbi asked the question, and we don't know which way we should go, the rule is as follows. Tafsa, if she grabs a hold of it, since we don't know if she's entitled to it or not. So if it's now in her possession, she grabbed it and then leave it there. Light Tafsa, but if she didn't grab it, just sitting there in the state, then we don't give it to her. And interesting, the Gemara says we delay the get by 12 months. Let them be separated for 12 months, and maybe they will reconsider, or she reconsider, whether they really want a divorce or not. But during the 12 months, because they're separated, during the 12 months of the year, less law mezainim. She does not get any food from her husband. Why should he have to support her when she decided that she wants to leave him? But nevertheless, the Gemara clearly said to have a year separation. As far as I know, here in Victoria, they changed the rules that recently, that you don't have to, in the last decade or so, that you don't have to have a separation of a year before you get a divorce. Other parts of the world, you still have to be separated for a year or two before you can ask for a divorce. Here we see right here the basis for that. Okay, everyone have a good day. We'll continue.